like we're way ahead in a normal setting.
Here we are. Give people a second to tune in.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Hello and welcome back to another live stream orchestrated by the First Tuesday Conservative Group, hosted by Alpha News. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tonight we have a very special guest, and I know I say that frequently, but genuinely, this is a guest that I'm excited to talk to. Katie Hopkins. If you don't know who she is, you absolutely should. She's a well-known British political personality, outspoken conservative. She's been deplatformed on Twitter because her message is so strong. She has appeared on Fox News multiple times as a guest with Hannity and Tucker Carlson. She's also known for her fearless reporting in hostile environments like the migrant camps in South Africa and presently the streets of Minneapolis. Hopkins, thank you so much for being with us.
Yes, this may well be my toughest assignment yet, right? So no, thank you very much for having me on, and it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you to the people that join you as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you're in Minneapolis right now. You've been on the streets. Tell me, what are you seeing and how did you come to be here?
Yeah, this is a strange place. So I'm staying in the heart of downtown, and it is empty here. You know, this building I'm in, it's supposed to be full with people. It's all done out beautifully, and it's lovely, and it's new, but there's not a soul here. And you notice it when you're out on the street as well. There's a sort of scurrying that goes along. People have fear, and it's driven into them hard. And they don't look up when they pass you in the street. They travel next to the sides of the buildings. I've seen this happen before in places of conflict, and it's very true here as well. I fear for downtown, actually. Downtown is ripe for the taking, and having spent time in Skid Row recently, actually, as well, on numerous occasions, I see how quickly Skid Row in a tiny area can expand outwards when an area like this, downtown, starts to become unoccupied and boarded up. So yes, dark times here, I would say, for Minneapolis right now.
You make a very good point. This could be the beginning of an extremely negative shift for the city. Absolutely. For those of you who are just tuning in, I know sometimes some people show up a few minutes late. This is Katie Hopkins, a well-known British conservative journalist and lightning rod conservative activist. Speaking of your activism, tell us, why did you come to Minneapolis? What do you hope to expose? What kind of message are you hoping to tell people when you're here?
Yes, and I suppose there's a sort of two-story answer to that. The first story is that I came to America, and I came to America because I came to join the fight to get Donald J. Trump 4 more years. And I've been on the road for 2 months now, traveled through California, speaking every day or every other day in large events. There's something we'll get to shortly about the gathering of people against lockdown. And actually, as I've gone along on the road and time has gone past, I see that mission I had or set myself has changed slightly. You know, I thought I was coming to campaign, rally, gather to get Donald J. Trump another 4 years. But in fact, it's become something much more human than that. And it's become much more about helping people see that when we get together, we feel much better about ourselves. And actually, we think they took away from us maybe, you know, masks, or you shut that business down, or you have that curfew, or no, you won't do that, and no, you won't eat in those groups. We think those were the things they took. And that's not true at all, actually. What they actually took from us was the thing that our side actually does best of all, which is be together, fill each other up, make each other feel like, okay, we've got this, let's go. And actually, that's what this has become all about. And I can't tell you the joy of seeing, you know, Gavin Newsom's California, you're allowed 10 people in a room, seeing 250 people in a backyard as they walk in, their little faces when they look around and see other people smiling. We have a brilliant laugh together, and we laugh at and with ourselves, and people go out, you know, refueled with joy. And that's really what this has come to, this tour. And I will get to the point of being here, but is that, you know, we know, you know, your listeners or viewers will know that this is not a fight of left or right or red or blue or conservative or otherwise. This is about people that want the best for their country. And our side, to me, is the side of joy. And I felt that from Redlands to Murrieta to places in California people won't know, Beverly Hills, 400 people on the street corner rallying through Rodeo, now coming here. There's an electricity when we get together, and that's the electricity I'm trying to bring. And I see it as I arrived in Minneapolis that I was going to need to plug in that charger and break through the malaise because of the depressive nature of this place. But we're getting there. There's green shoots. We can talk about the events coming up, but people want to be back together. And when we're together, we know and we believe that we can win.
I completely agree with you. One of the most damaging aspects of all these coronavirus shutdowns is how atomized people have become. Conservatives, we thrive on community and togetherness and a sense of, collective well-being. And when we're deprived of that, it's very difficult for us to organize and keep our spirits up. And I would posit that the left knows that very well, very well. So with this pandemic going around, I was under the understanding that international travel is a bit limited. So tell us, how did you come to be in the United States?
British people are banned from America, so we should make that perfectly clear. I'm sort of an illegal immigrant, although it's really been very distressing because as an illegal, I was promised like free healthcare, free food, free medical, or like I was promised the world. And what have I had? Nothing at all, nothing. No. So I decided I was going to be coming anyway. I do have a media visa and various letters from congressmen. I'm not actually quite the rogue that I'm making out. But the fact remains I'm not allowed to be here. So I decided I was coming anyway. I've never been that great at being told no. My father will attest to that. I've passed that down to my daughter, unfortunately. And so I also believe very strongly, and I would urge this out to your viewers, is that the time for asking permission is over and the time for waiting to be given an answer is through. And I applied to the embassy without avail. So I got myself on a plane and worked out where I could still go and where at the time they were still flying to America, and that happened to be Barbados. Now you could say, 2 weeks in Barbados, Katie, not a tough decision. And I would tend to agree with you. I have teenage children, like hormonal daughters. So like 2 weeks on my own in Barbados. But still, I went there, I got tested at the airport. I had to go into isolation for 2 days. I went into quarantine for 15 days, ringing in every day with my temperature, which I made up. I didn't actually take my temperature because detail. And then American Airlines canceled down my flight to LAX. And finally, I got a plane to JFK, got to immigration, tried to pick the immigration officer that I thought looked most like a Trump supporter, and then presented myself, and he kindly let me through. And then I was having this big sort of celebration at the baggage carousel. I was like, yes, I did it, I'm in. And then I realized I looked like I just kind of smuggled heroin into your country. Made this a little cooler. And I've been in ever since. So yeah, on the road all the time. And the glorious thing about people, or being a little bit known by some people, is that now they see I'm here. The momentum's kind of picked up, and people, it's helping give people a reason to group together. It's helping demonstrate that rules are there, but if they're ridiculous rules, to what extent are we obligated as free citizens to oblige those rules? And so there's been it's been a joyous thing, and I'm proud to have broken in, and it's good to be the only Brit in America.
Well, you do know you could have just walked across the southern border in some places.
That actually there was many options running, and one of them was the Mexican border going in the trunk of a car option. So yeah, no, that was on the table for quite a long time.
Yeah, so you talk about how sometimes you have a duty to not follow absurd rules. I agree with you, and it seems like members of the left aren't following any rules at all. We've seen unprecedented amounts of violence and riots, and I want to ask you, what's your perspective on this as an outsider, somebody from the UK, and where do you think this ends? Do you think that there's an amount of reparations that people could pay, or an amount of virtue signaling to perform to make the violence go away?
Yeah, exactly, Carl. I think you're so on the money with it, which is the sort of so what? I come from a military background. I went through the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, and it was a 35 years, signed up for 35 years. I didn't do the 35 years before anyone has any remarks on that. in the intelligence corps. And the thing we were always taught, you need to know what you're doing and why, your aim and your plan, right? What am I doing and why am I doing it? And it's a question of so what, so what, so what, so what? What does it mean? So what, so what? And that's something, and I was just at the George Floyd Memorial, the church of George Floyd, that's now 4 blocks of your city. And, that's the question they haven't answered. And it's the question they haven't asked ourselves. And it's so typical of every protest here in America that I've ever been at, is they don't ask themselves, so what? And if I stopped any person there and asked them, why are you here? They'd all have a different answer. Yeah. They have no unity of purpose. And to me, Black Lives Matter is not a movement. I mean, I know people say it's a terrorist organization, it's Antifa, it's whatever. I'm not super interested in that. At a fundamental level, it is an organization. It is not a movement because it has nowhere to go. It does not know what it wants. And unless you know what you're asking for, you can never get an answer. And I know what they're planning next, and I know what they're going to do next. They're already working out that now people don't care. People aren't looking anymore. No one's really bothered that we've shut down the roads. So they're planning on taking that 38th Street sign and moving it somewhere else. In their initial thinking, it's going to be moving it to a rich suburb. But I believe the day after the election is when they will rise again and they will burn, loot, rob, steal, rape, potentially, their way through the suburbs here in Minnesota. That's what I believe in Minneapolis. So they don't know where they're going. There is no end point. There is nothing that will make them happy, but I believe they're preparing to go again.
So what would you recommend that conservatives do about this generally? And then what do you recommend that individuals do about this? If they're feeling unsafe in their homes, if they're feeling alone during this time, what would you recommend to them?
Yeah, I mean, in a curious way, look, I've never considered myself a prepper. There's this idea of preppers like with their Tupperware and their stuff in their lofts. I'm a regular mother of 3 kids. Like, things are hectic. I'm not organized for most things. Sometimes I can't find 2 shoes that match. But at this point in time, we need to be prepared. And we need to be prepared not really for the election itself, though clearly we all need to be voting. We need to be prepared for the day after. And I appreciate there may be a lag and a delay, but we need to be prepared for the period after. And that's really asking yourself about who are the people that matter most to me and how do I protect them? And I'll be working, I'm on Parlay at Katie Hopkins, capital K, capital T Hopkins. And over the next 2-3 weeks, I'll be working with a number of individuals and organizations to help people access advice that helps them to prepare. And this is not intended in any way to be frightening to people. I've just come from California. You cannot buy a weapon in California now. They are sold out. You cannot buy ammunition in California now. I went to the gun range to practice for myself. All of the weaponry in the gun range is gone. So people in California are preparing. I know a gentleman who has cannons staged at his front gate, which I just simply adore. But it's preparing it's more of a mentality about who are the people I love. If my neighborhood gets taken over, where am I going? How am I getting there? What's all you need that packed and ready, or how are you defending? If you're choosing to defend your home, how are you doing that? And if I may just briefly, Carl, one of the things I find, it makes me rage. It makes me rage with a passion some men could only dream of. People that think they're going to protect themselves with a Black Lives Matter yard sign, Kyle. I am going to, in the next few weeks, start knocking on their doors in a polite and British way, because they hammer those signs into their lawns like they're building fences. They hammer those signs in with the pride that I've seen real men build walls. I need to tell them those signs aren't going to save you. Those signs aren't going to protect you when the mob comes. And you can dance around in your polite little tennis shoes, apologizing for your whiteness all you want, but that is not going to save you. Now is the time to pick a side. And I know the side that I want to be on.
Absolutely. I think some of the most telling images that we see, during all of this is the stores with the Black Lives Matter banner up front and the windows shattered and the merchandise all stolen. I just saw a message in chat here from Scott, our producer. He says, breaking news, Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died.
What?
I haven't confirmed that yet. What's your immediate reaction? I'm glad to have you on the show at this moment.
I 2020 keeps on coming, doesn't it? Doesn't it just keep on coming? Yeah, confirmed.
Yes, I'm confirming it right now through CNN, the Washington Post, National Public Radio. RBG is passed. Of course, we always mourn a loss of life, a loss of American life on the show. We always take a moment to commemorate that a lady who, lived a public life and participated in public service has passed away. And I don't want to politicize her death too immediately by, talking about the details of that. But wow, a stunning moment, more news in 2020.
Absolutely. And, you've got to give it to her. She has endured, and I was speaking to people. I was speaking about her only the other day, actually, to a group of physicians and doctors that were gathered. They were specifically talking about how it is inexplicable that she had endured through the things that she had suffered through, and yet she still prevailed. So people may have lots of different opinions on many of these things, of course, but I would say there is always compassion and respect for someone that can prevail and endure. And I think that's probably the first thought.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that we need to get back to a place in America where when somebody in public life dies, we take a moment to commemorate that and have some decency. So absolutely. Wow. Shocking. I didn't think that was going to happen on this stream.
No.
So, moving beyond that, we were just talking about, the phase of change we're about to enter in November. We now see that America is changing even more with a new Supreme Court justice position open. It seems like Black Lives Matter does not have a set of clear objectives. We've outlined that. But what objectives do conservatives need to set beyond just being prepared on your own? I agree that that's important. But as a movement, what objectives should conservatives as a whole strive to accomplish during these dark days?
Yeah, even though we feel at times, and I know people really feel this at the moment, in ways that many people don't feel able to articulate, because there's something about conservatives where we know that we like to appear strong and bold, and particularly I think for men and women too, but we like to appear that we've got this and we can handle this. But the truth of this is simply that many people aren't handling it. I've been cried on more times on the last 4 weeks on the road than I have in my life by big, strong guys. And the reason for that is when we gather together, they touch back into how they really feel. And then later in the quieter times, all of the truths come out. 8 months without a job, a wife maybe that left, children they don't see anymore, a sense of losing everything you know.
Yeah.
The key thing for our side, and it's something I'm very robust about, is we have to remember what it is we believe in. And that takes some doing sometimes, because the world is, as we've just witnessed, an utterly crazy place. But as long as we're very clear about what we believe in, and the beauty of America, in contrast to my country, where we're further down a dark path, but the beauty of America is there's some things you're very clear about. I'm just reaching across here, excuse me. Number one, this document. And in fact, just because I'm properly trying to be an American, I have two. I can double barrel the Constitution. This is not planned prop work. I also have my National Rifle Association.
Very good.
In case people are wondering how I travel around America, I've got it covered. So number one, you're very clear about this, is that you're not a democracy, actually, you're a republic. Yes. And that's one of the things I'm kind of hammering home. You're a republic. And when you come to rebuild this place from the ashes of the hell that will break forth, it is a republic to which you return. Number two, there was never a time that governments told you what to do. As Americans know, as it says here, you invested them with those rights, and trying to reclaim some of those back when they make no sense at all. We're law and order people. I'm a law and order person. I'm military. But you reclaim your rights if you're being told nonsense. And I think one of the things we also hold on to, and it's where I've had real hope, and I would encourage anyone to do the same. If you can find a church that's open, it doesn't matter if you're religious or not. I'm not massively religious. I've spent time in Marietta with a pastor, Pastor Tim Thompson, who kept his doors open and has this whole time. And he stands there and he says, I bow to no man but God, and I do not take instruction from government. And I actually think it's the fundamental, the core of America that we're now returning to, faith, family, freedom. That's a mantra right now. So for me as conservatives, that's to which we return: faith, family, and freedom. And anytime you feel a little lost or alone on that, you either grab this, you either grab your weapons, or you grab a pasta or any of those things, or grab me, and we will recall that we know what we're about. We know why we're struggling and fighting for this, and that we will be stronger when we're together. So there is some robustness required, but actually our side is the side of the right. And it's something I always feel when we're together as well, Carl, is, get people to look around you. Whose side do you want to be on? Because there's only two sides, really. It doesn't matter how convoluted you want to make it. You can call them Marxists, socialists, communists, Islamists. It doesn't matter. That's still them. And then there's us. And if you were to pick a side, our side is the side with the Constitution, with our Second Amendment that protects your first. And this is a great side to be on. So yeah, in these times when they are trying to make you believe that everything is changed and nothing is the same, that is a lie. There is much that remains a fundamental truth of this country. And I think that's what we're all now pulling towards.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a very inspiring message. I totally agree with you that a return to values is what we need. We need to remember the roots of our country because we are conservatives. We have to know exactly what we're trying to conserve. Speaking of conservatism, I've heard you talk about several conservative principles. I've heard you mention liberty, but I've also heard you mention this community aspect and this idea of forming interdependence with people that you're close to that some libertarians might reject. So now I'm curious, how do you describe your own conservatism?
Yeah, and I hear you totally. And I think mine comes from my work traveling and trying to better understand the world around. And I say that because I do tend to go to the pointy end of things, the pointy end of the spear, to better understand the things I'm trying to talk about. I think our side respects well the fact that we never ask anybody to agree with us. We simply wish to share our views, and perhaps others want to be part of it too. And my sense of working and this sense of community is born out of lessons I learned in South Africa. If I was to draw us a spectrum, if I had a whiteboard, and I do love a whiteboard, so never let me lose someone because I'll be there. But if I was to draw a spectrum of where we're at, and actually Minneapolis rather, is in many ways the perfect case study for this. If we're running down a spectrum of where we're at in life, England is a very long way down that dark path. My country will fall by 2030, Muslim births outnumber births to all others. And by 2040, I'm a minority in my own land. And power, law, police, housing, health goes across to Islam. The fundamental bedrocks of what makes us a country are in the hands of the other. So we're down that path, but further down that darkness, even further than Minneapolis, of course, or England, is South Africa. Yeah. Whites are down to 3% now. South Africans are preparing to make a last stand. They're preparing to find a place that they will withdraw to and make that last stand. Big white Boers say, "I will die in my boots for the love of my land." And it is biblical and it is epic. And I'm not being trying to be dramatic or overly emotional. But what I've learned from those white farmers is that as much as you're a libertarian, and surely there's no truer libertarian than a South African farming the land in hillsides on his own, is that they do work together in order to endure. So I've been part of their radio call rounds every morning for call signs. They call these farms hundreds of miles apart. And the reason they call in the morning and last thing at night is to check that that farm is still there. I don't mean it in the sort of sense that someone may have passed in the night, but at night is when the monsters come. So that's my sense, is we need to think a little in that way. We need to operate as a community that is enduring. I think maybe actually the thematic of our talk today, Carl, will end up being what with the passing of an enduring lady. And our own battle here is this sense of enduring and prevailing. And that's what we're all trying to do right now. And it's what South African, and particularly South African farmers, do so well.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned something about South Africa and about your home country, Britain. You talk about this idea of homeland and of natives and outsiders, and this idea that there are natives to a place and there are people that have a birthright to a place, and then there are people that are not from that place. That's a very difficult conversation to have with people. And I've of course seen you get dragged through the mud hundreds of times in the media for trying to advocate those ideas. How well do you think those translate to a society like America that is less hegemonous than the UK used to be?
Yes, it's very true that these are very different. I mean, I know we speak the same language loosely, but we speak the language very different. Our countries sometimes are almost 90 degrees apart.
Mhm.
And outsiders in the UK, some outsiders are the very best of us. You know, make no mistake, our Indian diaspora, and of course you have it here in America, are the best of us. They work harder than us. Their children do better than us at school. They love us and they love our country and we love them. And you've got the same thing here with Modi and his visits that Trump even wanted to be part of because he saw how big the audience is for Modi.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it's like our brilliant and brave Mexican community in the close to the southern border, the American patriots that are the Latinos for Trump. They couldn't be more American in their soul. They love your church, they love faith, and they love law and order. So my point is, there are outsiders who are the best of us. But we are in a worrying moment where if you're a national born in a country by birth, you have a right to be there. You're at the back of the queue. You're at the back of the line, sorry, language. And that's true in the UK. So people like my mum and dad or elderly people, they email me and they say, you know, I'm glad my time is nearly up so I don't have to watch my country fall. I have mothers emailing me, they can no longer get a place for their child because white British nationals go at the back of the queue behind recently arrived individuals who may have crossed by dinghy from France and come from Africa. It's not that I wish them ill. It's merely that if you are born in a country, I believe you have the right to be at the front of the line. And what we're not talking about, what no one will talk about, and in fact, if you talk about it, they'll come for you, is that there is a quiet exodus underway. Jewish families are moving out of Europe at a rapid rate. Paris will not have Jewish people by the end of this, I would say, in 5 years, and there will not be Jewish families in Paris. The same too in my country, and indeed white Christians, however you loosely define yourself, are looking towards Poland and Hungary for a new place to live. And I see that you'll be able to see it, Carl. People that follow you will know. The movement of people in America is also underway.
Yes.
And I know we can talk about taxation or we can talk about, you know, but in truth, people pull back to a place they feel more like home. And it's a thematic we're seeing everywhere, but it's a thematic no one's allowed to talk about.
I agree. It's very difficult to talk about. And then there seems to be this idea that you need to apologize for being at home in your own country, this idea of privilege and, you know, bending the knee and all this sort of stuff. You know, you set me up very nicely for my next question by mentioning that it's difficult to talk about. I do want to touch on some of the free speech stuff. You've been deplatformed from Twitter. You've had some difficulty, you know, disseminating the message. Of course, you've been very successful at it, but social media is against you. Big tech is against you. I'm wondering, you've consistently stuck up for your beliefs and you've paid a price for it. Would you recommend that the average conservative does the same? Or how would you recommend that your average sort of conservative leaning person interacts with these forces?
Yeah, that's a great it's a great question because I don't know the answer still. Certainly deplatforming and big tech and all of that they're the least of my troubles, though they have removed every platform I've ever had. In the UK, because we don't have a constitution, I daren't put it up again, otherwise I'm going to get told off for overvoting the constitution, but because we don't have a second amendment, we don't have a first. There has not been free speech in the UK, I'd suggest, for close to 10, 20 years. People self-censor at the point of thought. If I suggest something online that is seen as going against what is approved thought, police will come to my door. I've been arrested, interviewed under caution for a column in a national newspaper. They come for everything. They've come for every job. I had a Daily Mail columnist, a radio host, and the rest. They come for your home with lawfare and litigation. Alex Jones and others have seen this happen here, I know. But for me at home, it became, there was a new law made just for me that meant that if you believed, Kyle, that I caused you, you perceived that I caused you serious harm on this conversation today, you can sue me tomorrow and I have to pay you. So I sold my family home. I don't own a home now. I don't have anything in my name. My children no longer carry my name either. And social services come regularly because people report me to social services as an abusive mother, hoping that they'll take my children too. And then finally, people can Google if they wish. A couple of jihadis came to chop my head off. They're now in prison. And then the British government created a play, or helped fund a play, which people are welcome to Google the billboard for that too, called The Assassination of Katie Hopkins. So yeah, Zuckerberg and all the rest, I don't really fear them too much, but certainly the message in the UK is they will hunt you down. And I believe they will keep going until you swing from a tree. And in many ways, I guess that goes back to our theme, is that every day you don't is a day you kind of win. And clearly this is not something I encourage other conservatives to take on, but always try to support someone who does, whether it's doing something that you're doing, which is helping me articulate some of the truths of my country and my own truths, or whether someone's able to attend an event, perhaps, or even actually, you know, there's kindness that we can offer, not to criticize our own side and not to beat up our own. And it's something our side does spectacularly well, which is gaze at its own navel and beat up people who are on our side. And it's something the other side doesn't do. So we can offer kindness, support, and platforms like this. And I remain, bizarrely, hugely optimistic, because I do believe, and our side is simply the best side to be on. And I don't regret any of the things I've said or done, or any of the things I've had taken from me. And in some ways, when they take everything you have, you become possibly the freest of all. I'm probably more free than I've ever been.
Yeah, I mean, suddenly I feel glad that the worst I have to worry about in terms of free speech is Zuckerberg deleting my accounts. You paint a very grisly picture of how it is over in the UK. Gosh, so it seems like you've set up this continuum where you have America, and then America can potentially devolve into the UK, and the UK can potentially devolve into South Africa. Some people would reject the idea that that's a continuum. They would say that's totally impossible here in America, or that America would take a different route. How do you respond to those people? And do you think it's likely that America will end up as the UK has?
So, those people that think I'm absolutely talking madness, do they want to come here? Come give me a knock tonight. Come.
Go to Minneapolis, absolutely.
Yeah, come to Minneapolis, but most importantly, come to downtown. Come to where I'm at, on wherever I am. And I'll walk you around this place, and I'll leave you on your own for a little bit. And then I'll ask you, are you headed where I've come from? Because I can tell you, you wouldn't last very long on your own out there. I don't think you'd walk 3 blocks here on your own. So number one, that, and I will do that, and I do that, and I do it every day. Number two, I see that the continuum is not perfect. America is so different because you are a republic. And you will always be. Do I believe you are beginning a path of last stand? Yes, but not in an end time way, a withdrawal to space that you can defend. There's a reason people pull to Arizona or to Texas before, or Nevada or Florida. We're pulling to spaces that we can feel at home, and that one day we may defend. So I think there's that sense of it, that we are regathering, regrouping, reorganizing. But if I may very briefly, you know, if I articulate how the UK is in the most broadest and, you know, cumbersome way, there is a place called London, and then there is a place called the rest of the UK. You have that here, if you, in old terms, New York, California, Rust Belt, rest of America. And of course, that's how our voting pattern turned out with Brexit, Trump. The big city, London, voted one way, and the rest of the UK felt another. And I think that's perfectly true here. You have America that feels at times very American. If you look at Minnesota, outside of these 2 areas I'm in, Minneapolis and MSP, it is a conservative state, right?
Absolutely, it is.
But it's that same model: London, rest of the UK, center, Minneapolis, MSP, Minnesota. And that's the thing. If they take the heart of the thing, it speaks for the whole place. And that's what we have to be careful of. That's what we have to rest against, is how do we stop the small area with the dense population speaking for the rest of us. So the parallels are really clear to me. And the thing I'm trying to help push to is we've got to get this stopped. We've got to stop these small pockets speaking for the rest of us, because once they assume power and legal power, and then they're a mayor, and then they have financial control, that's when the takeover is truly underway.
When you explain these things, it seems so clear and apparent. And when you look at Minneapolis, it seems so obvious what the results of these left-wing policies are and what the results of, these progressive forces are. And yet some people don't see it. What's your opinion on how this cognitive dissonance exists? How do some people not understand the problem that we have in the West?
Yeah, self-preservation. Self-preservation is absolutely it. And I felt it last night with ladies whom I very much think are absolutely lovely ladies, but snacking on wine and peanuts whilst having their, next door neighbors with their Biden and Kamala lawn signs, worrying slightly that they can hear gunshots for the first time somewhere down the road, and talking about how their friend's 16-year-old son just threw himself in front of a train because he couldn't see a way forward, but politely all the while eating their peanuts and drinking their wine. And it's almost as if this sort of idea of self-preservation is such that, well, if we don't think about it too much and we just talk about it in polite terms, and we maybe go along with them a little bit, or maybe, still stay friends with the Biden people, and, this idea that if you make your world smaller and smaller, you can somehow preserve yourself. And I guess my message, and it's one I go out there boldly with, is that the time for self-preservation in that regard is over. And there is no way of protecting yourself from this unless you come join us and be part of us, and we're going to make this better than it's ever been. But yeah, I know people who, they put their heads away and they don't listen to politics. They don't get involved because they think it will protect them. And I think a really good analogy, very briefly, is the diners that we saw attacked when they were eating in DC, I believe the footage was, and the mob came and they raise your fist, you'll raise your fist. And the lady said, no, I would not. But just the thing that alarmed me about that video, if anybody could watch it again, maybe watch it back, look at the guy next to her, look what he does. A white gentleman with a moustache, why would you have a moustache? Raises his fist. He does it really lamely, and that is the perfect synopsis of what's going on, is that people raise their fists not because they're with the mob, but because they try to preserve their own self, their own dinner, their own, safety. And I think the message from me is always that if you ally yourself with the thing that hates you, it won't save you. The thing that hates you will get you in the end. And this idea of giving up your moral courage for temporary safety is not worth that sacrifice of your pride.
The ostrich can no longer see the threat when he sticks his head in the sand. And I understand why some people want to do that. They want to pretend like it doesn't exist. They don't care about politics, and they hope politics won't care about them. But I mean, there's a lot of people that were guillotined in the French Revolution that didn't care about politics, and politics absolutely cared about them. I think that's very astute to bring up. One other thing I want to ask you, we've had sort of a dark conversation. These are dark days. And the existential future of the West and of Christianity and of these groups we've been talking about is threatened. And I think you alluded to this earlier when you spoke about community, but what do you do to avoid becoming someone who throws himself in front of a train? What do you do to stay optimistic? Because you're a very optimistic person and you are looking the threat and looking the enemy right in the face every day. How do you manage it?
Yes, and my email is katie@katiehopkins.co.uk. So this is really to young people. My audience actually, even some sad old ladies radio show that I had on a Sunday in the heart of London, political show, call-in show, 10 in the morning till 12. I mean, who listens to that? It was the biggest listened to radio show, commercial radio show, and my biggest audience actually was 14 to 18-year-olds. It beat all of the modern kind of show. So I know that there's young people out there that are listening, looking, watching, feel more silence than ever before. Email me and I will grab you. Sometimes I feel we need to throw a rope around the waists of people just so they can lean back on it and we will get them forward. You know, one of the things I tell my children and anyone out there who's doubting if there's a way through this, imagine on those, I don't know what the American word is, but when you're at an airport and you get on this thing and it moves, we would call them a moving carpet.
Oh, conveyor belts.
Yeah,
yeah. Like conveyor belts. You walk.
Okay, like a conveyor belt for humans, that thing. And the French have it better. They call it tapis roulant, which means moving carpets. So imagine yourself on the tapis roulant, the moving carpet of life. And so that whatever happens, no matter how awful you feel, even if you're going to lie down in your sweatpants and cry, we're still going to move forwards and move through this. This too shall pass. All I need you to do is hold on. So hold on to me, hold on to the rope that joins us together, grab me wherever. Just wait and we'll all move through this on this moving carpet, number one. Number two, there is so much hope because we are fighting the side of the right. And whether you have a biblical reference for this, some sort of end of times, or whether you just see it in its truth, that these are possibly the most testing times many of us have ever known, is that perhaps we had to get to this point in order to save ourselves. Perhaps things had to be pushed to the very edge of darkness for, I'm looking for more prop work here. We had to be pushed to the edge of darkness for so many people to wake up. The Lyft driver yesterday, I can't take any more of this, I need Trump. My Uber driver, the gentleman in the postal service with the blue hair in a mohawk who told me 4 more years. Watch out for people. I'm going to use this as from actually my glasses cleaner. I wanted a face mask, but funnily enough, I don't have one. Watch the way that people take these masks off, because it's the perfect indicator of our side. If someone takes the mask off like I do, like this, and throws it, that is a Trump-Pence pin right there. And the joy of what we've been given with this corona hoax, well, the reaction to it, whatever. I don't need to win anyone on these arguments, but it's that we've been given a way of communicating with people we didn't know were on our team. And I see it everywhere. And it's given me so much joy to find so many supporters of our side. They've always been Democrat. They voted Democrat all their life. Perhaps they still will be after this. But in this election, they're voting with what's best for the country. And very briefly, it's another parallel with the UK. When Boris Johnson won on the 12th of December last year, people came out and they didn't vote Labour, Democrat, Bernie, Corbyn. And their grandfathers' grandfathers had voted red. Labour, sorry, we're different colours to you. Yeah. They came out and they voted with Boris Johnson because they voted for the will of the people, for respecting democracy and for what was right for the country. So I say that to young people in particular, you are enduring this and I admire you, but perhaps we had to take it to the edge in order to get ourselves better again.
We can only hope. Sometimes it's in the darkest times that people find what their values are and learn to take a stand for them.
Yes.
And God willing, we'll take a stand in November. Unfortunately, we're coming right down to the end of our time here. So I have to ask you, what is next in your work and your activism? How can people keep up with you? And I guess that's the question. What's next and how can people keep up with you?
Well, the keeping up with me thing, I would suggest probably Red Bull or something. It's pretty non-stop, but I love it. It's electric out here. Next up in the grand scheme of things is going to be Dallas and Texas, obviously an easier ride than Minnesota, Minneapolis. And then I head to DC, Brandon Strack and the Walkaway team. I'll be speaking in DC at the rally. And with Lara Trump and a number of others to keep the movement going. Then I might be circling back now, it looks like, to California because there's been a sort of tidal wave of we need more events. So that's happening. Right here, maybe, I don't know if people are attending the MAGA SOTA rally tomorrow. Perhaps you're able to tell them where it is because I'm a foreigner. But I would say if you can attend the MAGA SOTA rally, there may be surprise speakers there. And then I have a theatre event in Hopkins, which, given my last name is Hopkins in Hopkins. Those tickets have sold out, but there's talk of now taking that to be a sort of industrial heartland. Hopkins does the industrial heartland cinema tour. So there'll be more dates to come. And if I may ask people to maybe follow on Parley at capital K, capital T Hopkins. And I say that because it's just a way of me updating where I'm going to be. And and come grab me. And if you're really fed up, email me and I will try and make you feel better. We are all in this together, and this is the fight of our lives, but and it's an exciting one to be in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on with us. Thank you so much for your message. It's inspiring, it's rousing, and it's what people need to hear right now from the right. You know, we're in doomy and gloomy times, but now is not the time for doom and gloom. And I really appreciate the optimism and the sense of community and the kindness that you've expressed tonight on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Carl. Thank you. It was nice to spend time with you.
Best of luck for your the rest of your tour in the United States.
Thank you.